I'm a bit concerned because he covered the entire alphabet of the future, so what the hell is left for me? Thank you, Goldman. I think I'd rather steer away from predicting the future and rather talk about how can we harness the opportunities that it holds. Fortunately, I'm a lecturer, so that means we always start with a quote. And this is the one that I like the most about the future. William Gibson wrote in Neuromancer more than 3 decades ago, the future already happened. It's just unequally distributed. And what we are seeing is that these weak signals we see on the periphery of our vision, they sometimes become the most important trends that define our future. It's organizations that harness these trends, enrich them, then create technology around them and create trends around them, and in some ways create the future through a process we call ecogenesis. But we're not going to cover academic terms in this session. Let's rather talk about the future. I'm not going to talk about the future that will happen. No one can predict that future. We are going to talk about the future that could happen. In this ecosystem of technologies and social changes, economic changes, what is possible? The technology is there. To what extent will these technologies be adopted by all of us? We don't know. So I'm going to use a part of our presentation to talk about the future that could be. But the most important part of this presentation is rather the technology that will enable us to create the future that should be. How do we choose these technologies within this ecosystem of possibilities and use them to create the future? That, in essence, becomes the challenge. How do we change our business models, and how do we change our view of management as the world becomes increasingly complex? And that will form part of the presentation henceforth. So let's quickly take a look at some of the technologies that will shape our lives. We're going to take a look at change in security, a revolution in farming, whole new ways of looking at transport, quantum encryption, quantum computing, biomedicines, CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing. These are some of the trends that are shaping our world. Let me give you a brief introduction into some of these major trends. And the list goes on and on. But if someone were to ask me what would be the 3 biggest trends that will shape our lives in the next few decades, I'd settle on the following 3. The first one would be we might just become a type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. Now, what the hell does that mean? Kardashev was an astrophysicist in the 1960s, and he looked at different civilizations throughout the universe. He defined these civilizations based on how we utilize energy. So a type 1 civilization would be a civilization that's able to harness all of the energy that dissipates into its atmosphere of its local star. That's a type 1 civilization. A type 2 civilization would be a civilization that would be able to harness the energy of the entire star. Think of satellites we put around the sun, and all of the energy that dissipates into space we can harness and then transmit through technologies like microwaves to us as a civilization to use them. A type 3 civilization would be a civilization that will be able to harness energy from multiple stars. For those of you interested in this, there's a fascinating star called Tubby's star, 1,980 light years away from us, and someone out there, a number of astrophysicists, are thinking that the erratic signals we're getting from that star might just be from a Dyson sphere. We'll never be able to communicate with a civilization. It'll take about a 4,000-year round trip, and we don't know what version of English they're speaking. But the interesting thing is that some of those civilizations out there might just be available for us to detect based on what they do around their star. Where are we on the scale of 1, 2, 3? We are currently a type 0 civilization. We currently burn everything to sustain ourselves. We burn oil, we burn coal, and within the next 200 or 300 years, there won't be nothing left to burn. So will we become a type 1 civilization? We need to take a look at the weak signals that might just take us there. And one of the most important weak signals is ITER. Who's heard of ITER? The International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor? No one? Who's heard of Kim Kardashian? Now you know what's wrong with society. So ITER is currently being built in France. The newest update is 2035, and the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor is mainly aimed at nuclear fusion. Not nuclear fission, the nuclear reactors we have right now, but nuclear fusion. Light particles, like hydrogen, fused together to create helium. And the energy that's released is enough to sustain us as humanity. There's a technology called a tokamak. There's about 200 of them already built to a far smaller scale. And the problem with nuclear fusion is the intense heat. So what you want to do is create a very strong magnetic field to contain the plasma, because the moment that the plasma touches the outside of the tokamak, it'll melt. So creating or recreating the same nuclear reaction we see on the sun here on Mother Earth. But if we can get it right, we might just be able to create an entire new revolution in how we generate energy. To put it in context, you need a pool as big, Olympic-sized swimming pool is enough energy to sustain us as humans for an entire year in terms of electricity, if you can harness it, based on Einstein's formula of E is equal to mc squared. The problem is that the magnetic field takes so much energy, we don't know if it will require more energy to contain the plasma than what we'll get out of it. But even if we only get 0.5% out of it, we're on the track of creating a whole new source of energy that might just be the start of taking us on a journey to become a type 1 civilization. There's alternative technologies to the tokamak. The Stellarator at the Max Planck Institute, utilizing advanced mathematics and computing power to do exactly the same thing, but a different design. But even if some of these technologies don't come to bear, there are some other changes that we are seeing in the world around us. Firstly, we are changing the way in which we use energy. We're storing it in the day and using it at night, and we're using it to charge our vehicles. We are seeing big projects like Bill Gates' Breakthrough Energy Coalition. He kind of figured he's won the battle with malaria, so he's spending a hell of a lot of money in trying to change the energy equation, making energy and electricity literally free of charge. Will we get there in the not-too-distant future? We don't know. Some scientists in Australia is now playing around with solar cells that actually generate energy while it's raining, taking a look at the polarity of the raindrops. We're looking at photovoltaic cells that we're already using, and take a look at the price comparison between what we are seeing now and what happened in the year 1980. Our anticipation is that by 2020, we'll talk about 3 American cents per kilowatt generated. And once you've made that investment, you keep on harnessing the energy that comes from it. Now, this is a weak signal. It tells us that in the not-too-distant future, energy just might become free of charge. Think of that. Think of a world where 40% of the money you spend on either on fuel or electricity disappears out of your monthly budget. Think of motor vehicles where 60% of the cost of steel is directly related to electricity. What would happen in a world where electricity is literally free of charge? In the same way that bandwidth and storage space and so forth is free of charge in certain contexts. Well, we have to take a look at weak signals. Here's an interesting weak signal. 9 months ago, Germany, for the first time in human history, paid people money to use electricity. How the hell did that happen? They were generating so much energy from their photovoltaic cells and from their wind farms that they were worried that their grid's going to blow. So they contacted everyone and said, put on your air conditioner and your oven at the same time, just please use the electricity. And to entice you to do so, we'll pay you money if you use electricity. A very interesting weak signal. Think of the water problem we have in the Western Cape if energy is literally free of charge. Desalination is actually linked to the cost of energy. We can solve large parts of our water problem with an abundance of electricity. So in the same way that we have an abundance of bandwidth, storage space, and processing power, in the next 2 to 3 decades, we anticipate abundance of electricity, and that's going to change the energy equation. This will change the entire world around us. In Belgium, they are now building a dam in the middle of the sea. Why? It's the most effective battery you can think of. So if they have an abundance of electricity, they simply pump water into the dam, and when they require the energy again, they simply use that to drive hydroelectric power. Interesting technology is shaping the world all around us. So what about the future of vehicles? Currently, we are building cars around batteries, but in the not-too-distant future, the battery will be the car itself. The smart materials that we will use to construct vehicles will store energy. So by 2025, if your daughter comes home and says, "Dad, I scratched the battery," you better be worried. It's going to be expensive. The second key insight, or the second trend, is where we start redefining intelligence, both in terms of machines as well as in terms of our human brain. But what can we do in terms of identifying or harnessing the mysteries of the human brain? And there's huge research projects. The BRAIN project in Europe, close to €1 billion that's set aside to help us understand the human brain. About 4 years ago, some researchers in Japan did a study, and they said, is it possible to record our dreams? What they did was they showed video images to a person. They put electrodes on the visual cortex of the brain, and they fed that into an artificial intelligence computer, or AI engine. So the AI engine compared the signals on the TV with the signals that they recorded from the human brain itself. And after about 5 hours of training, they removed the video signal and said, based on the signals we get from the human brain, can it try and construct the image that it thinks the human is seeing at that point in time? Let me show you the results. On the left-hand side is the images. On the right-hand side is the predictive model by the AI engine. And that's what it looks like. Not spectacular clarity, but very interesting that if we can increase the granularity of our measurements, we might just be able to record our dreams in the future. Be very careful with that, however. You have to have military-grade passwords because you don't want anyone at work hacking into your dreams because they might come up with some very interesting ideas. So huge increases in brain science and how we define intelligence. I'll talk to artificial intelligence a bit more as time progresses. The third important trend, I believe, is that we will become masters of our own evolution. A couple of months ago, I did a DNA test on myself, my family and myself. 23andMe costs about 1,500 Rand. You simply give it some saliva, send it in, and 4 weeks later, they send you a data file with a big part of your genome mapped. So I can now log onto my computer and look at my genome sequence on a variety of genes. I came up with some very interesting characteristics. I always made fun of everyone that had English blood in them. You know, there's this big joke about Sarel that said, yes, my kids, I'm going to tell you the news of our ancestry. Tansara, way back in the 1800s, she had this thing for the Khoisan man, and they were quite happy. And then in the 1900s, Tansani, she got a thing for a Xhosa man, and we got that in. But thankfully, we don't have any English blood in us. Anyway, that joke as Afrikaner is no longer flying because to my surprise, I've got 24% Irish and British blood in me. I thought I was a Dutchman. Anyway, quite interesting to see what your genome shows. I also have 3% Khoisan blood in me. I don't know what that means in terms of my BE status, but nonetheless, very interesting to see how the world is shaping our world, or how information is shaping our world. Right now, I can log into my own DNA and see what deviations are there. And I've got 1 or 2 very interesting deviations, and that meant that I had to change my diet dramatically. Otherwise, I'm running into big problems in about 20 years' time. I'm doing the same for my daughter at age 9. I'm changing her diet because she's got some very interesting mutations as well. And by changing her lifestyle, I can completely change the chances of her getting, completely reduce the chance of that happening. Well, if you inherit certain genomes, you don't need to stress too much because in the next 5 to 10 years, there's an interesting technology developed by this lady, Jennifer Doudna. She identified the Cas9 protein as being the most effective protein to use in the CRISPR methodology. Now, the CRISPR methodology, in essence, enables us to create gene editing systems where you can edit a cell and snip out the part of the genome that's going to give you difficulty and replace it with something else. This has already happened about 2 years ago with this gentleman, Matt Chappell. He's a homosexual living in San Francisco, full-blown AIDS, and he's got some deficiencies in his autoimmune system. He said, oh, well, let's give it a try. And he did a gene editing therapy and changed his DNA. in essence, enabling him to be far more resistant to any other diseases. If this gentleman would have had children, that would be the first genetically manipulated children on the planet. But it's already happening. We are changing people's DNA. And the next generation of humans will actually be engineered by ourselves. We have become masters of our own evolution. These are the three big mega trends that are shaping our world. And what's quite interesting is that they are using tobacco plants to fight cancer. They're even planning one of these plants in Cape Town. This is how it works. You take a bacteria, you simply splice it with a virus, flu virus or anything else. Then you inject it into these tobacco plants, grow it for about 4 weeks, and then after 4 weeks you can harvest those cells. Right now they are thinking of taking your cancer cells, using CRISPR-Cas9 to deactivate stealth mode. Grow those cancer cells in these tobacco plants, extract it. So you'll have your own little tobacco plant. That's Pieter Geldenhuys' tobacco plant. After 4 weeks, extract the cells, inject it back in your body, at which point in time your white blood cell says, who's this? Suddenly it starts attacking the visible cancer cells, and as it morphs, it'll start attacking the invisible cancer cells as well, all those in stealth mode, making cancer a manageable disease. This is happening under our very noses. So we are seeing huge disruption. But the problem is, disruption is not lying ahead. The disruption has already happened. The biggest retailer in the world has got no inventory. The fastest growing bank in the world has got no money. The largest taxi company in the world doesn't have any taxis. The largest accommodation provider doesn't have any real estate. The largest media company in the world doesn't create its own content. We already live in a world of disruption. So what does this mean for us? Well, firstly, we need to realize that technology takes some time before it permeates through society. In 1880, the biggest problem in New York and London was dung, horse dung that they had in the streets, 1 meter high. So what was the solution? Oh, well, the internal combustion engine came out, so let's put an engine inside a mechanical horse, and the problem is solved. Didn't work out that way, did it? Then in the 1900s, the textile industries changed their steam spindle-powered machines to electricity. They had these concentric circles all built around a steam spindle, and then electricity came about. And they wired up all their machines with electricity. And what was the productivity improvements? Absolutely nothing. 10 years went by, still nothing. 20 years went by, still nothing. A new engineer came in and said, why are all these workstations in these concentric circles? I don't get it. Oh, in the old days, the steam spindle was there. That's stupid. Let's change the layout of the plant so material can flow through it more effectively. And almost overnight, they saw a 15% increase in productivity. The funny thing is, we're in exactly the same movie today. We live in a world where we all have this. Access to information at the press of a button. Information is all around us. We use this to translate these invisible signals into signals we can hear and see. And yet, we haven't changed our business models much, have we? It takes about 20 years. All we know is there's a rapid roller coaster ride lying ahead. So let's take a look at the change dimensions that will shape this space. The first change dimension will be velocity, the speed of finding the right connection. The second change dimension, the size of a thing, is granularity, the size of a thing of individual value. The third change dimension, concreteness. To what extent is the way in which we address a need of the client either concrete or abstract? The fourth change dimension is agency, one of the changes you guys are struggling with in the media. And lastly, density. How can we package all of these possibilities in the ecosystem to provide something of far higher value that wasn't possible before? So let's unpack some of these change dimensions. The first one, we really need to realize that the oracle is in our hands. It can predict the weather, tell us what's happening around the world, even tell us what prices we can pay 2 months hence for airline tickets. This is the oracle of the new era. In terms of velocity, the question always becomes up, what's the fastest animal on the planet? Any guesses? Some say it's a cheetah. I say, no, you're wrong. It's the human being. Put him in a spacecraft and he can travel at 27,000 kilometers an hour. See, the moment we merge humans with technology, we become unbelievably powerful. That symbiosis between humans and technology have redefined us as a civilization over the last couple of eons. So hyperconnectivity truly means that we are changing how we interact with our world, from things like in-building navigation, to swallowing chips that have internet addresses in them, to health monitors, and even how we can control not only our homes, but using this to become the remote control of our lives. Let me show you what's happening in this world of hyperconnectivity. Artificial intelligence is now increasing in leaps and bounds. That's called the NIST Camera. And the difference between that camera and a normal IP camera is that it can recognize human movement. So you set it up outside, and the moment there's human movement, only then do you get a notification on your phone. So how many of you got cameras at your house? And how many of you watch them on a daily basis? Oh, here's movement. Oh, it was a feather. No one actually worries about them. But this camera can recognize human movement and only then warn you. And even better, it can do face recognition. So wonderful technologies. And this is a metaphor for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence should be seen as electricity for a new era. You see, in the past, we had a drill to make a hole in a wall. You added electricity, and you've got an electric drill. Think of artificial intelligence as being the add-on to existing products to enrich their capabilities. I've got one for the ladies as well. I'll show that to you in a moment. Who's heard of Alexa? Alexa? You're in the media and you don't know about Alexa, the next revolution that's shaping our world. Alexa is the first computer without any screen, no keyboard. You simply talk to it and it talks back. I had a nice video clip, but I thought I won't bore you with it. It was launched about 3.5 years ago. I've got 7 of them in my house. So what's interesting is we've linked it up to everything. It can connect to your security system, your gates, your doors. You can hook it up to your lights. So Alexa can currently log up to everything. But it started out as a technology where you simply talk to it. Alexa, how do you spell cantaloupe? Alexa, how high is Mount Everest? Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes. Alexa, wake me up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. Alexa, add this to my shopping list. Alexa, add this to my diary. That's how Alexa started out. It started out with about 1,000 skills. It's got more than 10,000 skills today. Right now, you can ask it to call an Uber taxi. And the moment the taxi arrives, it says, oh, Peter, your taxi is waiting outside. In America, you can order pizzas through Alexa. You can order almost anything directly from Amazon through Alexa. You can pay your electricity bill. You can ask it where your phone is. So if this, then that. Who knows about that? If this, then that. Don't worry about it. So wonderful service. You can set it up even for the layman. You say, if this happens, then do that. Very, very simple to set up. You can connect your entire world. For example, you say, if there's a media file coming in via email, store it in this folder. Or if wonderful technologies is now available and it's done within a matter of 20 seconds. But Alexa can also be asked to book your flight tickets and compare the best prices. Chatbots will now become an obvious feature, not only on Alexa, but on a variety of phones. And last week, Alexa launched a new product. It allows you to take a picture of yourself, and then it gives you a rating which of the outfits you're wearing is the best. I try it on numerous occasions, and the highest I scored was 15. So I try numerous outfits, and it just says, no, sorry, Peter, try again. So I've given up, so I just wear black and some colored suit. So take a look at this, the new Alexa product. A mate of mine told me confidentially he can't wait to try it out, see which suit works the best on a daily basis. I'm using Alexa on my calendar system because we've got a large family, and we're adding all of us has got a calendar entry, even the kids. So we just simply say, Alexa, remind me to pick up Kayla at school at 2 o'clock, or Kayla's got netball at 2:30, and that's automatically added to our centralized calendar, which syncs to all of our phones. Really that simple, so it makes life so much simpler. Most people think IoT is this boring future where your home gets automated and your curtains close up and you log on to your fridge to see what's in it. Most people don't see any value in it whatsoever. Well, I bought a small holding outside Stellenbosch, and I was thrown some interesting curveballs. My parents-in-law decided to come and stay with us, and when my daughter was younger, she had this thing for birds and pets, and so my father-in-law decided he was going to give her a chicken. We also brought a Great Dane, and I think on the same day that Great Dane then ate the chicken. We then rushed to the pet store to get more 2 chickens. We brought them back, and the dog ate them as well. We got another 2. The same thing happened, and we said we can't drive to the pet store. So we never told our daughter that the dog ate the chicken. We kind of kept her in suspense. So we decided, let's buy 6 chickens and release 2 at a time. At which point, the dog decided to stop eating chicken, so we ended up with 6 chickens. So they're keeping the garden relatively free of any bugs, and they're giving us wonderful free-range eggs. But other than that, I've got no use for it. And one of them is a rooster called Gulio. Now, everyone loves the rooster except me and the Great Dane. I just hate this bloody rooster. He starts crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning and doesn't stop until 7. I kid you not. So a lot of us were wondering, how the hell can we use the Internet of Things to keep this bloody rooster quiet other than just slaughtering him? So you have a small little device called a Raspberry Pi. They go for about 400 Rand. It's a fully functioning computer. And what we've done with the Raspberry Pi is to trigger it to start listening at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the moment it hears a noise, we then trigger the speaker. So we recorded a couple of growls from a lion on the Raspberry Pi. And the moment this chicken starts, the lion goes, "Rawr!" Yeah, it kept the bird, quiet for like a day or 2, and he just continued doing it. So the rooster's too stupid to know what a lion sounds like. We're doing some experiments. I'll keep you updated. Then, to keep Sabon happy, my wife decided to buy a small little Cocker Spaniel, called him Salvador. And the problem with Salvador is he kept on peeing in my study. So I came into my house and the dog peed in my study. So my daughter and I decided we'll put a stop to this. We got our little Lego robot. We programmed it at the moment that the dog would walk into the study. It would then recognize it through an infrared sensor we have over there. It would then strike at the dog and say, "Salvador, get the hell out of my study. Go pee elsewhere." And it worked like a dream. He never peed in my study ever again. So that's how we use IoT out there in the sticks. What else is changing our world? Virtual reality. We all know that. All of us are walking around with VR helmets. Who've never played with VR before? So if you put a VR helmet on, it looks something like this. So that's what you experience when you put on a VR helmet. So all of you know by now, if you put it on for the first time, you start with the fishes, you upgrade to the dinosaur, then you do shatter reality, and only then do you go on the roller coaster. Never, ever show the roller coaster to a first-time user. It's extremely dangerous. Look at the video footage we got from Russia. Instant fame for all the wrong reasons. What virtual reality is doing today is that it allows a car salesman to show you what the next model will look like. You simply put on your VR helmet and you can experience it firsthand. But VR is also changing how media and specifically advertising will be affected in the future. Take a look at this little camera. It's called a Ryko Theta S, and it's a VR camera. You can take a picture or you can stream video live to anyone in the world that has a VR headset on. You can take a picture of your hike in the Kruger National Park, or you can buy one of these expensive units called the Nokia Ozo, about 7 million rand for it. And then you can put about 10 of them all around a rugby field or a soccer field. And then you can jump from the one camera to the other camera and experience it as if you are there. So as the team comes in to score a try, you are physically at the goal line as they do so. And the wonderful guys and girls jumping up and down with their SAB T-shirts on, well, that's the new way of advertising. A wonderful new way of redefining how we experience sport. We anticipate that this will be a reality by 2020 at the World Rugby Cup as well as the Olympics. And the 5G networks are built around this, giving you less than 7 milliseconds delay because you want less than 7 milliseconds, otherwise you become nauseous when you have a VR helmet on. Take a look at this. The Microsoft Hololens has been in development for the last 7 years. Last year, they rolled out the Hololens Dev Kit. So you can buy one of these for about $3,000, and then you can do development work on it. So what you've seen there isn't science fiction. It's fact. We anticipate that to roll out within the next year at a price point lower than what you'd pay for a normal cell phone. The world will change. Holodeck meeting rooms, new ways of looking at education, all of that will change, and it'll have a massive impact on media consumption. Let's take a look at the second change dimension, granularity. There's an interesting story about what do you hire a milkshake to do. So here's the brief summary of it. I normally ask my students, here's an interesting case study. A business school professor is asked to help a fast food company to make more money through selling milkshakes. What would you recommend? And they come up with weird ideas. Then I ask them a far more important question. What's a replacement product for a milkshake? At which point they say, oh, a smoothie or an ice cream. And all of them, because of our view of reality, all of them are wrong for a very important reason. They realize that early in the morning, someone grabs a milkshake, and then as they drive into work, they taste the milkshake. So they swing by the fast food outlet. And when the business school professor asked them, why did you buy that milkshake? The answer was, it ties me over until breakfast. Now what's the replacement product? It's an apple or a crunchy bar or a chocolate. In the afternoon, mom's got a small little milkshake for the kids. Kids want to date Angelina Jolie and fly to the moon, and mom says no. And they say, well, would you like to have a milkshake? And the kiddie would sit there with his huge milkshake slurping through it. So the next time mommy comes in, they half the milkshake, put a Chinese toy on top for 10 cents and say, "Hello there, ma'am. Would you like the adult-sized milkshake or the small milkshake with a free toy?" You see, the reason why they buy the milkshake is to just reward the kid for being a kid. Two completely different reasons why they consume milkshakes. And that is extremely important because this goes directly to the emotional state of how we look at products and how we align with brands of organizations. Now, I know that most of you in the media industry know all about archetypes, and archetypes that defines the emotions or link to the emotions that is inherent in all of us, the collective unconscious. The innocent that promises that the world is open and it's free to be you and me. The explorer, which don't want to be fenced in. The sage that believes that truth will set you free. The hero, where there's a will, there's a way, conquering all obstacles in his path. The outlaw, breaking the rules, even in business. The magician, allowing everyone to believe that it can happen. The regular guy that believes that all men and women are created equal. The lover, who only has eyes for you. The jester, who says, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution." The caregiver, that loves their neighbor. The creator, that believes that if it can be imagined, it can be created. And finally, the ruler, where he says that power isn't everything, it's the only thing. And what's quite interesting is that all of the civilizations throughout the world have been linked to these underlying emotions. And then about 15 years ago, we started realizing that the most dominant brands in the world were all aligned to archetypes. So we all know how this works. I'm going to throw out a word in the motor vehicle industry, seeing it's a very competitive space with about 10, 12 decades of competition. I'm going to throw out a word, and you tell me what you think is the word that best describes that car brand. Remember, it's just a car, 4 wheels, an engine, some styling, and some steel. But if I say Mercedes-Benz, what emotion does it elicit? Luxury. BMW. Speed. Audi. Vorsprung. Volkswagen. Reliability. Alfa Romeo. Pedantic. Sexy. How about Volvo? Safety. Now take a look at how these brands are aligned with archetypes. The ruler, Mercedes-Benz. BMW, the hero. Porsche plays there as well. Audi, creator. Where Rolls-Royce, the magician, gives it links to power. Volkswagen, everyman. People's cars. Where does Volvo sit? Caregiver. Any guess where Alfa Romeo sits? Lover. An explorer. So what we are seeing is that the most dominant brands in the world out there are linked to underlying archetypes. And reinforcing that linkage to the archetype is critical to a brand, even in a multimedia space. So how does this influence the world around us? Well, let's take a look at the third key law, concreteness. Here, in this domain, we are taking a look at an environment where a service supplants any physical product as well. So in Europe, if you want access to a car, there's Zipcar. You take your phone, you say, click, where's a car? Oh, 400 meters in that direction. You say, book the car for me. You unlock the car, start the car with your phone, drive around, and the moment you stop, you simply pay for it. Now, access to personal transport is not owning a car, but having an app. The world becomes more virtual. And one of the important things is how this has an impact on our brains. About 4 or 5 years ago, they realized that we don't make decisions on rational thinking. We actually make decisions based on the state of our brain, monitored by a part of our brain called the basal ganglia. And what this does is, or what the basal ganglia does, it constantly monitors if our brain is in an excited state or not. So what excites us? News, novelty excites us. That's why we read the newspaper in the morning, or where we listen to the radio at 8 o'clock, because that novelty triggers our brain. Music, humor, all of that triggers our brain. Novelty is an unbelievably important driving force for human beings. Even the deal sheets we get in our newspapers, where we open them up and see what are the best deals, that triggers novelty and also triggers dopamine release in the brain. And we don't make decisions based on rational thinking. Most people will take you to a car showroom, show you some wonderful things in the car, and he says, you press this button, and the dashboard goes from green to orange, and suddenly your brain wires up, and you say, I want this car. You then make the decision to purchase that car, not based on rational thinking, but based on the state of your brain at that point in time. And if I ask you, why did you marry that husband you married or marry that wife you married? Why are you living in that house? Or why did you buy that car? And you'll realize that our decisions wasn't based on rational thinking whatsoever. So, we have to realize that a far deeper understanding is required. And that's where the view or the deeper insight into the human brain will give us a unique insight into the opportunities of the future. When we talk about the business model canvas, it's about how do we define, how do we identify the core needs of our customer segments, and how do we create a value proposition to uniquely address those core needs. We are seeing a whole sea change in how the world works. It's the end of television channels, because now we simply click a button and we watch anything we like. Right now, more than 60% of internet traffic in the United States of America is used for video streaming, and it will increase. What we are seeing is that advertising is changing as well. No longer can we stand on a big molehill saying, hey, buy my product. The molehill has been replaced by a million whispers. What do I mean with that? Take a look at this. So you could quite simply tweet about this or put it on your Facebook page. And if you, I think in the media, all of you have got about 3,000 close friends, don't you, on Facebook? But if you take it one layer further, you can reach close to 10 million people. It's no longer about bought media or owned media. It's about earned media. It's how you leverage bought media in order to drive earned media, where other people talk about your brand on their social platforms. That's the key to unlocking this future. The focus is no longer on the 90% who's not your clients. The focus is on the 10% who is, because if you provide them with an excellent service, they'll tell the rest. Welcome to a whole new world of advertising. I'm not going to take you through all the jokes or the memes that people utilize. These are the memes people use to make fun of Explorer by saying, oh, we got a multimeter machine gun, and that's Explorer. If you want to kill yourself, that's what you do. And there's wonderful memes that explain how Explorer done it, and we've seen memes in how the iPhone scandal bended like Beckham, the iPhone 6 Plus 1 week and 3 degrees down, how to make a nice paper plane out of your iPhone. This is your iPhone 6 repair kit. This is what happens when you try and break a Nokia. This is how the rest of the world is looking at it. And then this is what Samsung did 2 days after it broke, after the news broke. Bend to those who are worthy. Rapid reaction advertising, climbing on a meme and then harnessing it to its fullest extent. Well, Samsung's got their own problems with the S8. That's how you can charge your S8 notebook quite safely. And that's the new Note 8. It's now being sold with a small little extinguisher. Then you can use it quite safely. Let's quickly take a look at the last part of my presentation, augmented reality, and then I'll wind down. What we are seeing is these two mindsets. Some people are saying, you know what? The future is going to be scary. Artificial intelligence will dominate our lives. Others say, you know what? Worrying about AI is like worrying about overpopulation on Mars. Two diverse mindsets. What we are seeing, however, is that AI is changing our world. Now, I'm running a bit out of time, but what I'd like you to do is to take a look at, or Google the following. Look at the movie called Morgan. There, the IBM frame, or the IBM AI engine called Watson, created a 30-second trailer. So you show the AI engine 100 movies, and you show them the small trailer. May I take 2 extra minutes? May I? Let me show you that trailer. So what they've done is they took an AI engine, fed it 100 movies, and said, these were the trailers we created from them. Now take the Morgan movie. Now, as an AI engine, you go and create the 30-second trailer. This was the result. The trailer was done by a computer with no human interaction. Take a look at the following. What took humans normally a month, 3 humans a month, was now done by an AI engine in 24 hours. The key behind artificial intelligence is not the mathematics. That's been around for decades. The key is these graphs that were made available by Facebook and Google and LinkedIn. And only through that can we actually get new insights into human behavior. You take the graphs, you do a human mashup by merging all of your user data, run it through AI engines, and you get new insights. We are now seeing new market categorizations. In the past, we had the categorization, and we then started doing research to see how accurately that fits into our existing models. Now we're creating brand new models. We're looking at a whole new ecosystem of value. Let me briefly end off by giving you some insight into how these graphs have been utilized. And everything I'm going to tell you now is not 100% verified, so some of it might be conjecture, but it's a worthwhile exercise nonetheless. The question was, how did the world see the emergence of the first orange president? And the interesting thing is, if we take a look at the voting patterns, only a small part of the population voted for Trump. A far larger part stayed away. Then something interesting emerged. This fellow wasn't involved in his campaign, but he created something really interesting at Cambridge University. He created the ocean model. He made some predictions based on personality that is linked to your social media profile and your social media interactions. He believed he could predict your sexual orientation in 11 clicks, and he could predict your political affiliation in 7 clicks. There's a fascinating website called applyMagicSource.com. You can try it out right now. Then you can log onto Facebook or Twitter. You say predict, and it will predict your profile. This is my profile, by the way. You can see I'm a bit laid back and relaxed. I'm definitely a bit liberal and artistic, far more introvert than an extrovert. Now, how does this help people win the election? Well, this company, Cambridge Analytica, said, if you want to win the US election, don't worry about the red states and the blue states. They'll stay where they are. You need to look at the swing states. And by doing an in-depth analysis based on the personality of each of the voters in each of those districts, what can we learn? So they used Kaczynski's model, the ocean model, and they said, aha, we identified 17 different personality types. This is the ocean model linked to that type. And then they said, aha, these are the guys who are going to vote Democrat, those will vote Republican, these, based on their personality, will not go and vote. So what we need to do as a strategist for the Republican Party is to provide advertisements for these to stay at home and for those to entice them to go and vote. So based on your personality, they created 5 different advertisements. Think of gun rights. If you're slightly neurotic, you say, get a gun right now. Someone might break in. If you're more laid back and a family man, you say, your grandfather taught you how to shoot, your father taught you how to shoot. Don't let them take away this wonderful pastime. So based on your personality, they created an advertisement. Those 5 advertisements were then targeted at people. Now, here's something interesting, and this I couldn't verify, so this is where the conjecture comes in. But they say that Hillary Clinton at some point in time said, black men are more violent than white men. What an absolute racist statement. And guess what the opposition did? They put that on every time one of these individuals logged onto Facebook. Guess which advertisement popped up? So those that said, you know, I'd like to go vote Democrat, but if she says that, there's no bloody way I'm going to vote for her. Whereas they micro-targeted all of those and linked personalities to their personality focus and drove them to go and vote. What does this mean for advertising? It's huge. You take your dominant archetype and your 3 sub-archetypes, you create 3 separate advertisements. Then based on the personality profile of your user, that's the advertisement you send to them. The idea that you create one archetype message and you have one message that you transmit to everyone is gone. It's dead. The clever guys will now realize that you speak to the person. You don't simply sell products. What do you hire a milkshake to do? It's no longer about the acts of consumption, the directives or the identities linked to who you are based on what you produce. It's now linked to the identities and the needs of the clients and what they require from you. That is the future of advertising. Thank you so much for your time.